Well, I'm not on the agenda, so I don't know what to talk about.
Oh, you're not on the agenda? What happened?
Meeting to order,
because I know, first of all, thank you. Oh, we have a visitor here. Ready to come from far away?
Far away.
Okay, so, I'm calling the May 22nd, 2017 Commission for the Las Vegas Centennial Board meeting to order. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, who's typing over there?
Yes.
Okay. Are we in compliance with the, who am I looking at?
Yes, we are.
We are in compliance. Okay, thank you. Can we do a roll?
Chair Goodman,
Yes, I'm here.
Commissioner Barlow,
He's coming,
pres-
but he's not.
excused for now. Commissioner Coffin,
Here.
present. Commissioner Bryan,
Here?
Commissioner Arnold,
Here.
Commissioner Stoddall, Commissioner Brown,
Present.
Commissioner Feldman, excused. Commissioner Pike,
She's coming.
She's coming.
okay, excused for now. Commissioner Helton,
Coming.
excused. Commissioner Sinek,
Here.
thank you. Yes, Mayor, we have quorum.
And what happened to Alan?
I don't know if he's still traveling. I did not hear from him today, so
But
I'm
he
not sure.
wasn't on the roll call either.
Yeah, she,
Oh, you did the,
yeah.
I was Jim. Senior moment. Okay. Public comment during this portion of the agenda.
This meeting has been, we're in compliance with the open meeting law.
Because.
See your moment?
It's gonna be fun. And I want everybody to notice Hannah's beautiful top. If anybody saw, I did not.
Thank you.
If we watched, anybody who watched the music awards on Sunday, I understand that Cher was pretty close to your outfit.
Yeah, she was really good, but she had a little more showing than us.
Anybody who's missed that.
I know.
All right, is it right, Mr. Stoll? May I go on? Please, thank you. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. If you wish to be heard, give your name for the record. The amount of discussion as well as the time any single speaker is allowed will be limited. Anyone here from the public?
I'd like to speak to item 7
When we come, we will absolutely honor that. Anyone from the public? Okay, we'll close public comment and move on to item 4. May I have approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of March 29th? There's a motion to approve, please signify by aye. Aye. I mean, I don't know if anybody had any changes, but I guess it's too late if you had any. Nobody. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. And they carry. Thank you. Agenda item 5, we have a presentation by our wonderful city clerk, Luann Holmes, of the 2017 handbook for the board, committee, and commission members.
Good afternoon, Luann Holmes, City Clerk. And being passed out to you right now is our new handbook for boards and commissions. This is part of our efforts to create sort of an onboarding package for new commissioners. So I know that you are all been on this board for a while and you're kind of old hands. But let us tell you a little bit.
Be careful with the old.
Experienced hands.
Be careful how you describe this.
I know.
So in cooperation with the city attorney's office, let me tell you a little bit about what's in this book. We've written it, we think it's pretty self-explanatory and it's very simple to understand. In it, we've identified procedures and policies for appointments, resignations, vacancies. We've listed any type of authority and responsibility that the board members need to know about. We talked about communications, and we've set sort of some groundwork for people that are coming on. A lot of times they don't understand what the responsibility of the board that they're about to join, what those responsibilities are, what their authorities are. So we've listed them out here. We talked a little bit about the open meeting law and why it's important that as commission board members you understand what parts of that you need to adhere to. We talk about protocol, quorum. We define, the parliamentary procedures that you follow, conducting a meeting. We've even identified some standard motions in here. And then we list near the back any kind of reference material that you need to know, governing regulations like the city charter, the open meeting law, revised statutes. And then depending upon what kind of board or commission this is, in the very back, we've listed your particular bylaws. If you were, say, another type of commission that you had not only bylaws but maybe part of charter or municipal code that you adhere to, we would put that. So we created this so it's a resource tool for the people that are currently sitting on the board, but also it can be a good training tool for people that are coming on to the board. So, as I said, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. We welcome any kind of questions you have, or if you need any one-on-one, let us know. Our phone numbers are on the front there. That's the city clerk's office. Is there any questions?
It's very comprehensive. Yes, members total.
Under the bylaws, of course, we're a 501c3. Does that require us to do anything different or in addition to what a non-501c3 mandate for the city?
I would advise you to talk to your city attorney.
Terry Ponticello, Assistant City Attorney. No, it does not. The only thing it does is allows for a tax exemption. So reporting purposes or sales tax purposes, any type of tax purposes. But in terms of running as between the difference between a nonprofit corporation and 501c3, it's just kind of different categorization of your nonprofit category.
One of our earlier meetings, Senator Ryan pointed out that one of these applicants for 501c3 had long expired, and also that the mission of that 501c3 didn't fit the goals of didn't match what the goals of the applicant are. Do we file annual reports for this, or how's that handled?
The Commission for the Las Vegas Centennial did file for a 501c3 tax exempt status, and it was given specifically to the Commission for the Las Vegas Centennial. And in terms of filings, I'm going to defer to Mr. Williams, if there's any type of filings with respect to the 501c3.
No, the commission files annually the tax return for the 501c3, the 990, and we just filed that for last year. We just got it back from the CPA firm, and we filed it last week on time. So we're current on all our tax filings
Well,
for the
the
501c3.
mission, we've been going through a strategic plan. Does that change anything in our filings with the 501? Could we have, like, we're adopting a new mission statement, I don't know whether that's.
That doesn't have an effect on the 501c3.
One follow-up, if I may, Your Honor.
Please.
Yeah. So our CPA has told us to answer Bob's question. We are doing everything that we need to do to fully comply with the 501c3. So we're covered, and we file those reports annually. But who are those filed with? We file with the IRS, or where do we file?
You're right, they're filed with the IRS.
Okay.
And we filed in Ogden, Utah with the Internal Revenue Service.
Do we have a copy of the document that created the 501c3?
Yes, I've got the application. Yeah, I have the application in my office. I can bring it back and give you a copy of it. I will.
Commissioner Stoll had a question. In fact, I raised the issue with an applicant who was relying upon a 501c3 that no longer existed. And it did seem a little bit of an anomaly to be poking your star, so to speak, to a organization that no longer existed. So I just would be interested
Yeah,
in taking a look at
I'll
that.
scan a copy and
Yeah.
then send them out to you.
Yeah, thanks, appreciate it.
I'd like to ask too, in the event that this board commission makes a decision that is perhaps somewhat circumspect, is it the license of the city to override that? That's how we are created? Did the legislature create us, or did the city council create us?
So, Your Honor, just to give you some background information, the City of Las Vegas authorized the creation for the Commission for the Las Vegas Centennial. The monies from the license plate revenue are given to the city, and through a resolution, the city transferred the funds over to the Commission for the Las Vegas Centennial. So, if there was a circumspect decision that was made by the commission that right now, the only thing that is required through our operating agreement, and this is very similar to some of those other affiliates like City Parkway 5 that you have seen, is that any contractual obligation or financial obligation over $100,000 must be ratified by the city council. That's the one thing that was created as a checks and balance to make sure what the Centennial Commission was doing with the Centennial funds and making sure that the city also was in agreement. So, and that's by an operating agreement.
I think on that, too, if I can chip in, Coffin, is that, and Louise might be able to help, she's not here, but the enabling legislation, I do not think required that Las Vegas set up a 501c3 to
Correct.
receive or to manage the money. It was simply given to the city for purposes. I don't know if we named in the bill the actual body of the commission, because there was no commission.
So Commissioner Coffin, it's Terry Ponicello. When the funds were given to the city of Las Vegas and it was to be used for the Centennial purpose as set forth back then in the legislation,
That was the first part.
that was, the city found it was in the best interest to create a nonprofit commission consisting of community leaders who would decide what to do with the Centennial funds. And hence was the creation of the Commission for the Las Vegas Centennial. That was really a city policy decision back then in 2003. And for those, I think everyone except Mr. Sinek and Mayor Goodman that were around then, there was already an existing task force that was meeting, and it consisted of the Centennial, I don't even know what it was called, Centennial Board, and then they created an executive board. The executive board, they were already operating and meeting in preparing for the 2005 Centennial year, and what the city decided to do was to have that executive board become the Commission for the Las Vegas Centennial, and it became incorporated back in
But the
2000.
council has final say on what happens to the money, doesn't it, in the end? Since it has to approve or disapprove certain size and above expenditure.
In that regard,
I
yes.
suppose in the end, it always rests back there.
Should the Commission for the Las Vegas Centennial
I
decide
was
to disband?
piggybacking on that other question. I have one of my own, but I don't know. Hugh might have been trying to get your attention there. Were you?
Hello, Hugh Seneca for the record. I just want to say thank you as I was going to say the youngest member, but I don't know if I can go there. The newest member. This will be very helpful
Treading
information for me.
Very thin
I disassociate myself from his remarks. Look at Brian for the record.
I do have a question. Your Honor.
I'm so sorry, we're having an age
yeah.
discussion.
That's all right.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
For now, it's such a legalistic talk, it's at the sidebar. We're subject to the open meeting law as far as our conduct of meetings. What about as members? What about as individual members?
Well, you are considered a city commissioner, a commission, you're appointed by the city council. So, in essence, you are a public board member, just
So,
like
we have-
planning
Not
commission
a
members.
majority,
Pardon me?
then we cannot meet
Exactly.
in
That's,
majority.
we never had meetings where we had a majority our meeting. I mean, the quorum without complying with open meeting law
So
or
we have to be
committees.
careful about walking quorums and all those other things that some of us are familiar with and some not. And the reason I mention that is because page 6 of the outline here talks about communications with fellow board members and communications with council. And so here are 3 members of the council on this. The question would be is, do we really have to be careful about how we talk about these things? We
Always.
members of the council are not a majority, we are not a forum, so we can talk. But if some members come to 1, 2, or 3 of us now, do we have a problem with a walking quorum, or can we just be informal enough to be careful, or give us some advice on how to make sure that if some unhappy person comes in and says, I think you guys had a walking quorum, we made this decision, I came in here and I noticed the deck was stacked, so how do we avoid that?
Well, Commissioner Coffin, to go over the requirements of what would qualify as a walking quorum would really require some training and some education as to what the courts have decided. I don't want to get into the details at this time and place. I can
Okay.
certainly meet with you individually or give you some information, maybe have that as, if you want to hear it as a group, as an agenda item. But that's always a concern for any board member, whether it be the city council or the Commission of Las Vegas
So we
Centennial.
have to be in essence,
Just
not too incautious to, get a group together and then arrive at a decision. I think we could be hung for that.
I'm not going to say you could be hung, but certainly there might be some question about it. You have to be cautious. You have to be cautious.
All right, watch out, folks, that's all.
All right, thank you. And,
Question?
yeah, we have one here too, member Arnold.
Remind me, I know with our emails, we're already very cautious, not including the entire board when we're discussing certain project things. We limit the number, if I remember correctly. What is the number that we need to be sensitive to?
For this particular commission, the quorum is six. Six. And that's designated by bylaws, not by Robert's rules.
Was that?
Yeah, that
And,
would be the equivalent of breaking the quorum.
I think so, for the record, I think when we have a committee of 3 people, their communication, again, is to make a quorum. So I think that the things that Esther sent out, maybe to the group, we don't respond, reply all, we simply respond to. And I think that that's what we've been doing all along, I think we'll follow that.
That's the prudent thing to do.
Okay,
And
member
otherwise you
That's
have,
protocol anyway, just to, yeah.
Member Barlow, go ahead, please.
Terry, following up. Mr. Kaufman, following up on your point, sir.
I'm still talking too much. What, go ahead.
No, just following up on your point, I'll take the rest of your air and speak for you.
Okay, good.
That's my partner on the council. We poke each other every now and then.
Speech of fire.
Right. But you had mentioned that you could speak to us one-on-one. I mean, is it, in order for us to all really be engaged in this conversation, because it's something not only Councilman Coffin, Commissioner Coffin is concerned about at the council level, it's the same concern at the commission level. And so is that something that we could tee up and possibly make for an agenda item to have that discussion so that everyone can be engaged in it, so that we can basically, be able to air it out? Because with you speaking to each one of us, I don't think that it solves our issue, because someone may share something with you that may help me and vice versa. So I would think that it would be prudent for us all to at least engage in the conversation so that we can at least understand the direction of what you recommend, because I'm pretty sure you would say the same thing to each one of us, but there may be something happen
Commissioner
from all of
Barlow,
those conversations.
if you would like to direct the executive director here to put that on as an agenda item, we can, and I can work with our city clerk to make sure that the item that is presented to you is consistent with when it's presented to perhaps other boards, even the city council. And I agree.
I'll
We
defer
can,
to my colleague, Councilman
if
Coffin.
you would like that, we
for
can
that
certainly put
suggestion.
it on
I
the
was
next
just
meeting.
thinking out in the midst of your comment as far as how we could actually have that conversation, but Councilman Coffin, you may have your air back if that's something that.
No, I've already taken too long.
Okay, because we're
Let's
gonna move
on.
right
We got an
along,
agenda.
but I have failed to introduce our new CFO here, Gary England, from San Jose. I'm so proud to have you here. I know that we're going to hear from Mr. Williams shortly, but would you care to say a few words to?
Sure. My name is Gary Ameling. I'm new to the city, been here about 3 months. Most recently with the city of Santa Clara, which is next to San Jose. I lived in San Jose, so that's probably why the mayor remembers that from our previous conversations. I was previously, before Santa Clara, I was down in San Diego County working for the city of La Mesa. and before that I was up in Washington State working
But he
for the
can't hold the
city of
job, don't say all
Bellevue,
that.
Washington. So all that encompasses about 28 years almost.
Yeah.
So
No, you-
fourth city in the 27 years plus.
Yeah, just getting a little tour of the country, I did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we welcome him, he's done a great job in Santa Clara, for those of you who care about Major League Sports.
Beautiful.
The new Levi Stadium's there, which he was, involved with.
Very involved.
So,
About
that
49
sort of
years.
could help us at the point that anybody cares about relocating the stadium into the city. So moving along, because as we promised you, this was a short meeting, because all of you are coming in, extra, because we have several meetings going before we even hit the one that we're supposed to have. So this is a discussion item only and a presentation. Well done, thank you very, very much.
Thank
Good job.
you.
Okay, agenda item 6, a discussion for possible action regarding a grant request by Marilyn Gillespie, Las Vegas Natural History Museum, in the amount of $91,550 to interpret for the public the story of Las Vegas Valley during the Pleistocene 10,000 years ago. And I just want to say, which is off the record, but you may type it in, we are going to be having a circulator going around downtown. We do not have a coronary, but it's not for the first pilot program coming to the natural history, which we tried to include you that far. It's a cost issue and a time issue and everything, but we didn't forget. And the Neon Museum isn't there either, so just wanted you to know that. So please go ahead and continue.
And Mayor, she may also, I know this is off the record, they're hosting a downtown showdown? Did I say that?
Sundown.
Sundown.
Sundown and downtown.
Yeah, so if you can just mention that a little bit as a PR, and then, that would be helpful.
Will it
I think
help
that'd be
her
great.
cause?
It will help her cause.
Oh,
Marilyn Gillespie, I'm the director of the Las Vegas Natural History Museum.
And I'm Bradley Giles. I am the artist who painted one of the original canvases that will hopefully be in the museum on exhibit. And I also painted 2 of the others that will hopefully be a part of it also.
I standing back.
We're here again, and the first thing I'll just, in response to Ricky's request, we are having an event at the Natural History Museum called Sundown in Downtown. It is June 2nd. It's a very casual affair at the museum, and it's an effort to help bring people to the downtown area. And we have it out in Heritage Park, and it's a very, very fun evening. If you have a chance, I invite you to come down June 2nd in the evening. The last time we were here, when we were talking about our project, it was pointed out to us that we had an error on our budget, and apparently we are educators, and it's a good thing we're not mathematicians. So there was an error. We corrected that, and I have, you have a copy of the corrected budget in your packet. In our proposal, what we hope to do, as I had said last time, is we hope to educate about Las Vegas during the Pleistocene, which was 10,000 years ago. We will do this in 2 different methods. One is by, if we can purchase the paintings that Bradley painted, and we have an example right here of one of them. It's such a contrast with what Las Vegas looks today. It's very educational for the students that we bring in, to let them know 10,000 years ago how very, very different the ecosystem was, and that there were different animals that lived here. And having paintings, we can talk about these things, but having the paintings will be very, very helpful to us. Obviously, that, a picture is worth 1,000 words, so it will definitely help us as we try to do that. And the second portion of how we want to educate about Las Vegas during the Pleistocene is to be able to conserve the Gilcrease fossil collection that we now have in our possession, in our repository. And we would like assistance, financial assistance, to be able to do that, but ultimately not only to curate the things, but ultimately to get them mammoth fossils that have been found on this site, and we would like to put them on display.
Comment? Go ahead,
Yeah.
Senator.
Commissioner Wayne, I love the Natural History Museum. It's wonderful. Let me tell you what gives me a little cardiac arrest here, that with respect to the collecting, preservation, and archival, that is 1/6 of the total amount that you're requesting. And yet, these paintings are 2/3. Now, they're lovely paintings, but there seems to be an imbalance there. I mean, I'm very much interested in preserving, any of these archival materials that you need. They have them stored so they're protected, against weather, elements, rodents, whatever it might be.
Part of the value.
$68,000 for paintings? I have to tell you that.
Well, part of the value for us is there are not a lot of references of paintings of Las Vegas 10,000 years ago. To the best of my knowledge, there is only one. It was something that Smithsonian did back in the 60s when they came out to the Chili Springs area. So, there isn't a lot of references that, well, if we don't do these, we can just, go do something else. And these are the original paintings. These aren't prints. These are the original paintings. So that's part of the value.
But I guess I'm saying, I don't see you all as an art gallery with all due respect. I recognize, as little as I know about paintings, that originals are certainly more valuable. But in terms of the display, it strikes me that copies of paintings, at much less cost, I would presume, help you to communicate the message, as opposed, if you're in a gallery, you don't want a copy. I understand that. You want the original painting. I'm not trying to be argumentative with you, but that really, I just, in my own mind, haven't been able to work through that. I'm sorry.
And we are not trying to be an art museum, but we use art all through the museum, in every gallery, as a method to educate.
Never scrolled on.
You mentioned there that paintings are worth 1,000 words, and in this case, the three paintings are worth $68,000. And so it's really a question to the artist. And how do we arrive at a price like that? Maybe they're worth $100,000 each, or they're worth $5. I mean, how do we arrive at that dollar figure? Are these similar kinds of the work that you have sold, or is it a price range, or just give me a sense of how we arrived at 35, 18, and 15 as far as the dollar figure?
Well, to start off, I've had them appraised professionally, and the appraiser appraises them at.
Okay.
Second, I've already had other similar pieces of the Mormon fort. The state has commissioned me to paint one for, I think, about $20,000 for the Centennial, which actually your committee approved. And they recently purchased a second one last fall for, I think, about $15,000, which is now on their permanent exhibit. This particular piece, actually, Senator Reed had in his office in the Senate Hart Building for 5 years when he was senator. So there's a little provenance to that one, and the senator himself purchased one of Rafael Rivera, which was in his office in the U.S. Capitol for about 7 years. So there's a interest from the state as well as a senator with my work. So I think there's a little provenance to my work and interest.
Well, it sounds like we sort of set the price.
Yeah.
We bought the one for the fort. And I guess the question, if I could just probe a little bit further, is the issue of how an appraiser, what are the check marks that,
Well,
3,000, 2,700, that are?
Well, they go on also, if you look, this one doesn't represent a lot of detail, which is very detailed, but if I had a mammoth painting, it's 7 feet wide, and it's very detailed. I go into a lot of research as far as depicting the extinct animals, I just don't use my imagination. I do extensive research to try to get as accurately as possible to portray a particular scene, whether it's from modern history or prehistory, and there's a lot of hours involved. So
That
that
was my
adds to
other
also.
question, is, some of it is guesswork, but we don't have real photographs.
Right.
So have we had somebody that, from the scientific side, look at this and say, yeah, that's about as close as we think it is?
Actually, we do, and when last meeting, we had Liz Warren here and Helen Mortensen. They actually helped me in the research for all of these paintings that I've done, either with the Mormon Fort or the Columbian Mammoths, throughout the whole history of Vegas. So I just don't take it upon myself. I seek out the professionals to help me construct the scene of these paintings. So there's many hours involved in these paintings.
And one of the things that we did is, Dr. Josh Fondy is on our board of directors, and he has seen them and has also verified that, that they're very accurate.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no doubt that they're worth the money. I'm sure you've done as best you could with what you have. But remember, it is all speculative. It is all imaginative. With the other paintings, for example, of Crane's Mountain and Sunrise, that's done by, who was it in 1855, did that painting?
Right.
And we know there was a market value for that.
Came here with,
Can't think of the name. Yeah, but he saw it. He saw it. The paintings, the depictions of the Mormon Fort, they have been seen. They've been illustrated by contemporary people. All of these things have been through contemporary vision and recordation, whereas with the Pleistocene it's not.
Right.
It's all speculative.
Of course.
So in a sense, what we're doing here is saying, this is a guess about what it looked like. And I'm thinking that it's an educated guess, but it is nevertheless a guess. And we don't know enough about it. I know we've had the digs. It's never been all unified. We've had the big digs. We've had other things that Bob Stoldall is much more familiar with than I am. But the point is, I think that we need to apply the money to the original research so that we can really determine what it really looks like, and also if we can.
Right.
We've got Truly Springs. We've got the wonderful monument. We've got all that. And again, these paintings are speculative about what it might have looked like. But it hasn't yielded, this is derivative, it doesn't yield the actuality. We don't know. And so, damn, I'd like to have them in my house and in my family, in my office, but I don't know if I have the nerve to just buy them as wonderful works of art for a third party and then say that I've accomplished something for the historical record, because I really have not done that. That's my problem.
I have a couple of questions. Carolyn Goodman speaking. Marilyn, as you go forward and move the museum to a bigger location, and knowing what you've done in your confined space with the walls of some of the exhibits, is there any appetite for Mr. Giles to go ahead and create, when you go to the grand cities of this country, and you go to the natural history museums, and they have the models of what those prehistoric animals look like. And so I'm wondering, as you're looking ahead, and the second part of that question is, where specifically would these be housed, and would they then be owned by the museum, or owned by the Centennial, owned by the museum, I'm gathering? And so those questions, if you could answer.
We would, looking forward, definitely, we use murals now to show environments, and we would definitely hope to do more of that, in a larger space. The space that we would like to put them in is, we have an Ice Age exhibit, we call it our prehistoric mammal gallery, and we would like to put them in there. We had them very briefly, on loan to us a couple of years ago, and I already know how much put in our Ice Age gallery. And, you know, as far as, you know, everything being speculative, a lot of what we do when we deal in the past is speculative. When we dig up a dinosaur bone, you know, a skeleton, you know, we have the skeleton, and from research on anatomy, we try to flesh together what that animal looked like. But it's still speculative. But it is an educated enough guess that we feel confident that we can turn around to school children and go, you know, to the best of our knowledge, this is what it was like 10,000 years ago, or in the case of dinosaurs, 65 million years ago.
And wasn't there, again, Goodman here, Esther, wasn't there something from Ms. Mooney or somebody else who spoke to these paintings?
I believe both Courtney Mooney and Heidi Swank just went through the grant and made a recommendation for the commission to look at for funding.
A recommendation at the 89,550?
Correct.
Could I ask one more question?
Yeah,
Yeah.
please, Senator.
Let me ask you, focusing away from the art issue, this archival materials, tell me if I've got this halfway right. I presume, Marilyn, at some point in time, that some of these archival collections here that we're referencing here will be made major exhibits at the Natural History Museum, that you will rotate those in some fashion so that they can be presented at some time. Is that conceptually, have I got that right?
Right, there's some of the things that won't be on display.
Right.
But, yeah, our point is, what we want to do is we want to put a lot of the things
And I
on
would
display.
presume that there's some cost that would be associated, maybe the nature of the exhibit, you may have to have a special display case because nothing that you've currently got in the museum. And so, I guess from my point of view, I'm really much more interested and focused on what's going to be done with these archival materials to get those out and about. Not that I certainly should be dictating when and what should be shown, but $5,000 doesn't seem to me like much money to preserve, protect, and display. And yet we've got the $68,000 for art. I guess that's where I'm hung up.
The total on what's gonna be part of the archival materials is $21,550. Because there's gonna be a display case purchased, and the 5,000 archival, they're the boxes that we're gonna get, to house, to curate the fossils. And, you know, there's 6,400 that we need a project manager. We're gonna have, Dr. Bondi's graduate students come in and do a lot of the work, but they are students, and so has to be oversight. And so we will have a project manager, and the other $150 is once that we are ready to do a display, that's actually to cover the signage that will go in the display.
Director Brannigan, so you are convinced that $5,000 plus whatever assistance provides adequate funding for you to make a first-class presentation of those archival items that you deem worthy of that kind of presentation?
No, the archival materials are these are the boxes that the fossils will go in, and that they will go into, the public won't see these. This is to curate, to care for the fossils. But some of the fossils will come out and will be put on display in the display case.
Yeah, I understand that everything might not be, but you've got the adequate money to do that? I mean, this $5,000 doesn't seem much money in today's standards to do what I would think would be necessary for those archival items that are worthy of public display, to have the cases and. You've got the money to do that.
They look very straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had an opportunity,
Councilman Harlan.
thank you, Mayor. I've had an opportunity to visit the Natural History Museum on several occasions, in particular with my kids, and have an opportunity to tour the Natural History Museum on Las Vegas Boulevard, but also have an opportunity to visit, and Marilyn, help me with this, inside of the Las Vegas Library, there's a repository.
Yes.
And how many artifacts are there?
That's tough to say, how many, we have probably, a million, some may be this big.
Right.
Or some may be big.
And the point that I'm making is that a lot of what I've seen there has to be on display. We have to show the community as much of that display that you have, and I was just totally in awe. And then to find out that you were accredited by the Smithsonian.
We're a Smithsonian affiliate,
Oh,
but we're
Smithsonian
accredited
affiliate.
with the American Alliance of Museums.
Right. And so, as, for me, in having traveled and lived in other cities, I mean, I believe that I have to do all that I can to help expand and promote what we currently have here, specifically as a native. And the research that you all have put into your program and the partnerships that you all have teamed up with, I mean, I believe that there should be more private sector influence in regards to the museum, and I would like to really understand how, in fact, we can get that going. And so from the standpoint of the Centennial, I believe that this is just a really drop in the bucket to what your true needs are, and having everything that you've done and continue to do, be research-based, is something that I support personally. And so, I don't know about everyone else, but I most definitely would, Mayor, move to approve this item for her to move forward with bringing this level of education to the community.
Hey, there's a motion, I'm gonna take a vote on it to see if it moves, and, thank you both, and thank you for your fine work. There's a motion to approve on agenda item whatever 6, in the amount of $89,550. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. That doesn't, go, so we will continue any more discussion here.
I'd like to offer something up. Jane and I have been working on our new applications. And this discussion has kind of brought up some more thoughts, some other areas where we might be able to add some things to this. One of them is the appraisal part. And I'm wondering if there's something we need to do research on our side to add to our moving forward, our applications that has some details on how these come before us. I think we need a few more requirements to take out some of the challenges we all have with it. But I'd like to suggest that maybe it's something that they need to go back and look at when we finally adopt these, because I think there's gonna be some new requirements that might help us along with this process and figure out where this may better fit in with the way we visualize how we spend this money. So again, I didn't have a whole lot to add other than we're working on some new details. It might make sense for us to revisit one for
I think that's a good idea. Just to explain to you, what we have done is we found we were sort of without a long-range plan. We found we really weren't with a clear mission statement. We have found that we haven't really got a clear grant process in place. And so maybe we've got in this particular instance, because the motion failed, that we would put you back on hold or obey the item, which I think allows you to come back. But after this committee, this commission passes all those pieces. Because looking at the paper that Member Arnold was holding up their notes on it and stuff, which means that from their meeting and their committee, which is supposed to come in front of this board, we haven't even approved it yet.
so the record, first of all, this item has been denied, so we would, they would have to come back with another grant. But I think part of the confusion, part of the challenge that you're facing is from the first time the grant was presented, we got, wait a minute, is this a request for money for a display or is this money for an artwork? It's almost like there are two separate elements that are here. I suspect that if you would come and ask for $10, $15, $21,000 for a display of this, you likely would have got that. That said, I think we need to, because these pieces of art, in my personal opinion, would be worthy of, would fit the mission of that facility. But I don't think we're ready here to start. We went through a lot of discussion to buy the first piece of artwork for the fourth. That just didn't go through the first meeting because we're just sort of hesitating. How do we deal with valuing a piece of art? And so if we can have something within our grant process that says this is an appraisal kind of a thing, I think we'd have better groundwork, better foundation.
Well, I think the thing you pointed out, and Goodman here, is the fact that it's not a bait, it has been denied, and I had forgotten that. Therefore, there would be a year before it can come back. Is it different from council? What is the,
Yes.
yeah?
Yeah, Esther Ranky for the record. What I would recommend them doing is wait until we have the two grant processes completely done. They're back online, then they'll have the clear direction on what we're looking for when it comes to purchasing paintings or anything else. So, and that may take another meeting or two, but once we have those finalized grant applications back on, then they would resubmit a grant application based on the criteria in the grant.
Just one other item. One of the other things that I think we mentioned last time we met and what Jen and I talked about, and I'm sorry, as well as Hannah, when we were going through this process, was to establish a review committee. Essentially a three-person panel that's made up of maybe some of our outside folks and at least one of our members here. And that's to review these applications when they come in and before they hit the board. And that would be a great opportunity for when a new application comes in. We all have a pretty good sense of where we find some challenges with the current one, and we can, I think, help advise you.
Well,
what's
if I
going to make more
may,
sense.
Member Arnold, again, Goodman here, because of the fact we have the cart before the horse, because you've been denied the timeline of when they fit in, but from our last meeting, March 29th, we talked about having by the first week of April, members Stovall, Coffin, and Sinnock come back with the mission committee with the mission statement, which I believe you've done, which will be presented formally. The bucket list was supposed to be done by members Helton, Bryan, and Sinnock. You are busy. And then the grant committee was members Tyke, Arnold, and Sinnock was also to come back.
Myself and Mr.
Tyke, Arnold, Sinnock, and on the grant committee, I had Tyke, Arnold, Sinnock. No?
I don't think,
No.
you weren't part of our committee.
No.
Grant, who was
No,
on the grant
that was
committee?
The three of us.
The three of us.
Miss Brown.
Okay,
I-
so we got out of one, that's where it
But if you'd like to join, I'm happy to.
is. Okay, so my sense would be at this point a clarification, as to when they can come back, because I think we need to move this through, get these reports, finalize where we are, so, and not to go any further. So when can they come back?
Well, the good news is we have a Centennial Board meeting June 12th and a Centennial Board meeting July 22nd, I think. So
But because they were denied does not limit their time?
No,
I don't.
no, we don't have that.
Bylaws.
We don't have to
It
do
would be a
that.
different request, I guess.
Yeah.
If I could have the.
Please,
This
move on.
is Louise Helton for the record. I just wanted to at least inform you of at least some heartburn on this side of the table that this was a real ambitious grant that I thought was, we struggled just trying to get, I think it was $14,000 for one painting. This is a huge leap ahead of that with, into an area that is less of
so we have to. Okay.
Mayor, I think it's important, you know, I've been down this path before, having secured, got lucky, found, spent a lot of money preserving, collating, and then disposing of the Union Pacific Railroad collection 25 years ago. I spent out of my own pocket probably $21,000 to do exactly what you want to do here with the bones. So I understand how it adds up fast. And I'm in favor of spending money on conservation and preservation of real things. Now, I have seen the Dellenbaugh. It was the name of the painting of the old Mormon fort that I wanted to bring up a little earlier. Dellenbaugh, at one time, the late Lieutenant Governor and lobbyist Cliff Jones had it, and I think it was valued at $35,000 then, probably 30 years ago. And I don't even know whose hands it is in now, but I'm sure it's worth well over 100 or 200,000. I think that is kind of where I go, that this stuff is speculative, but Dellenbaugh actually saw the fort. And the mountains behind it. He had that view looking east, and he saw the sunrise and Frenchman's Mountain, and he actually did paint it. So everything else, then when you get into this value, again, as I say, as an artist, I'll bet they're worth this money, without a doubt. But it's like, it's our job to serve and save and preserve what we know is old, frankly, like me.
So
But it's really not new, not new.
What I would like to do is invite you back, because we don't have a timeline, get the dates to master, but making sure that we have gone through the process and dotted all the i's and crossed the t's, so you're coming back when everything's in order, because we are not in order as far as putting everything in place. We had a plan, and everybody's had their meetings, but we haven't confirmed and voted those pieces in. So, members of the
Real quick, this part of our history of our community is the part that needs to be told. I don't think anybody really understands that this was marshland. There was a lake down here that this was. That's what we've got going on with the Sully Springs. That's a world-class site. And so the direction the Natural History Museum is going in is so important. It's always been important, but even more important now than we're moving forward. So I don't think you're going to see a lot of opposition to that issue. You may want to parse this out and not have these two items together, maybe separate requests. So we could clearly focus on one and the other. There may be some more questions about the display. Maybe you need another $5,000. Once we get the grant process going with and our policy, so to speak, on the purchase of art, I think that would give you a clearer sense. And I think that maybe you could be of some help. You're an expert in this area, not just an artist. What's the normal process for appraising art, and what do other museums do, and how? There's a formula. There's got to be a process out there.
Well, I know historically, when the Smithsonian had commissioned master painters to produce paleo art for the museums back in the early 1900s, they didn't ask for appraisals on their work. They knew the artist's work, and the artist pretty much said, this is what I need to get paid for my work, because it takes X amount of hours, or they know their style. That's pretty much what the museums were willing to pay, because they wanted that particular style to convey the fossils and the scene of these long ago eras. So to be honest with you, having an appraisal asked of this, I'm bewildered myself, because I've never had this come up before.
So if we were to ask you, we need three paintings. We need Las Vegas marshland, the Shasta ground sloth, and the Sully Springs floodplain. How much are you going to charge us to paint that?
Well,
you would charge us $68,000.
That's how much. Well, together the three paintings combined, yes. Otherwise, there were, I think, 35 for the Mammoth. I think it was 18 for the Shasta, and 15 for this one. So.
Great. I really appreciate your help. It's something we've got to get our arms around and have a better understanding how we deal with our work today, because it's going to come up again.
Right.
Dellenbaugh.
Excuse me, the Dellenbaugh painting is actually at the Mormon Fort.
I think it's at the State Museum.
Yeah.
Any more questions, comments for Mr. Giles?
I'm going to ask a brief question. This 5,000 that you need to reserve, is that time sensitive at all? I mean, if we wait until June, are we going to be okay on that, with nothing's been lost and that? I'm very sympathetic to, what you need there to protect those, sort of.
It's not necessarily time sensitive, it's just the project is on hold until we
Okay.
get
Got
the
it.
materials
Okay.
to be able to do it.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And so you'll be in touch with Esther, she'll give you a timeline and see where we are if we have completed to the process for your submission.
Yes.
Thank you both.
Thank
Thank you,
Thanks a lot.
thank you. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 7, presentation, by Esther Reineke, Executive Director of the Commission for Las Vegas Centennial, of the formalized grant award process and documents. You're on, Esther.
Somebody want to speak on that? Oh, okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I have been doing a lot of work and hopefully pulling a lot of the kind of undone pieces together for the Centennial. Hopefully formalizing a process that's easier for all of our board members to see when we're putting out an agenda. The first and most important piece is up on the board in front of you, the Centennial Mission Statement. The mission of the Las Vegas Centennial Commission is to preserve and celebrate the history of the people and the history of the city of Las Vegas. I believe everybody has had a chance to look at it. Everybody agrees with it. All in favor say aye or forever hold your peace.
Yeah, really. We need a motion made by a member and a second by Mr. Sinnott. The motion was made by Senator Bryan, second by Mr. Sinnott. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
We will
Opposed?
put this on our, oh, sorry, Mayor.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you very much.
Is this something new that's occurred, we don't need seconds?
Oh, we don't need seconds.
We did
Oh,
something.
but I mean, we've had some others, we don't need a second?
It's been the practice of the city and the city boards that they do not have
You don't need a
seconds.
second?
You'll see it in your handbook.
Okay.
Yeah,
So on like the Historic Preservation Commission,
same,
we don't need a second?
same. This was a policy that was developed and used throughout for all the boards and set forth in your handbook.
Does that mean we have to go back and reconsider all of the
Redo the
votes?
seconds.
Move-
Unless,
Brian with a question. Terry, is there anything that says that, in the absence of something, the Robert's Rules of Order apply? Is that
you'll,
incorporated?
in the handbook, you'll see that
That
we
requires
do
a
not
motion.
require Robert's Rules of Order to be applied to our city boards and commissions.
The only meeting, the only group I've ever belonged to in 50 years that did not require a second, and we eliminated that requirement in the state senate in 1973.
The city
We
council
did
doesn't
not
require
a
seconds.
second. Mason's manual of parliamentary procedure does not require a second. We had, just as an interesting tidbit, we had a lovely guy named Boyd Manning, Red Manning, the state senator. His responsibility was to make the second, whether he agreed with it or not. Oh, that's a word. And we came over from the assembly and saw this, and this makes no sense at all. We all love red, but why the hell? So we just eliminated that requirement. Anyway, thank you.
If I may, on page 11 of your handbook, on the top, it says that the meetings, the protocol is based on Robert's Rules, but it's not followed per se. So we do follow some protocol with it.
Okay, Esther. you
Okay,
wanna
so
continue
mission
on,
statement,
please?
we
That's
will
done.
adopt this, we will put it on our website, every time we have a meeting, we'll have it front and center, and this is what we are living by now, which I love it, I think it's a perfect summary of who we are and what we do.
And
Okay.
just for the record, Hugh Sinnott did second that motion.
Thank you.
Clarification, needed or not. Keep you, no, we keep you in.
I also want to just really quickly introduce Marja Vegas. Marja works with me, mostly doing special events, but she's going to help me now with Centennial. She'll come to all of our board meetings, make sure that you have a validation coupon if you've parked in the garage, and help me do some of the administrative things. I think that will make Commissioner Stovall happy to hear I have help. So the next, well, let me see, just really quick. Terry and I worked on a congratulations letter, so once somebody is awarded a Centennial grant, this is just a really quick summary of what their next steps are. So if it's over the $100,000, we let them know that it has to go to council for ratification. If not, Terry writes the MOU. Most grants we give are receipt reimbursement. So this just gives the applicant a more formalized process of what happens once they're awarded money. And then picking up on what City Council gets on every grant application now, when you get it mailed in your packet and or as the clerks post it with the agenda item, there will be a grant summary page. I think most everybody in here knows that Courtney Mooney is leaving the city. Her last day is this Thursday. Yes, I tried to get her over here to a meeting. I do have a little plaque for her, but her last day is Thursday. She is going to I want to say it's something like a Logan Simpson design North Star. Do you know where she's going? North? I don't know. North Star,
North Star Productions?
No.
It's based in
not
Arizona. It's a historic preservation.
Yeah, so she'll
They
still.
work for us, the city. They've done the Huntridge
Yeah.
Survey of the historic homes that are there. They did that survey. I think they're also working on the medical center, the grant that we got $10,000 that we gave to come up with a history of the medical district.
Yeah. So she's still doing historic preservation stuff, which is what she's great at. But with her leaving, they have assigned a new person. His name is Paul Bengstein, I think is how you pronounce his last name. He's a senior planner over there. He is very well versed in historic preservation projects. Courtney has talked to him extensively about the Centennial, and he was going to try to make it today, but he had another meeting at 3 o'clock. So he may stop in before we're done. But Heidi Swank and Paul will review the grant applications and will provide you with the summary that will go. Yes.
So I think we need to have that discussion because, again, as mentioned before, we've kind of come up with our own version of what.
Yes, and when you said that, so if you want to take this, revise it, do whatever, and then that's what I was going to do is maybe rotate our board members in here every 6 months or whatever, so everybody gets their opportunity to review
Well, I think
grants.
it's very important that any reviewing committee has someone from the board because they understand the flavor, they understand what our direction has been for the last handful of years. And there's no reason to put something before us if it's completely contrary
Right.
to that.
So if you want to take that and add it with part of your packet,
Well,
that's
both
great.
parts are within Fallon in the next one. What number is your report? We have Louise Helton for 9.
They're right after.
I don't have
Okay.
to get one.
No,
He does.
okay.
And then the last little piece is a post-award report. We'll ask each applicant to do a post-report report.
Well, I highly
Post-report
recommend
report.
that goes back to this committee to make sure there's nothing added to it.
Perfect.
Put those both on, you have those in your book.
Got it.
That's my little report, just to formalize a few more pieces of the Centennial puzzle.
Okay, thank you very much. And now we'll move on to agenda item 8. We have a discussion for possible action regarding the annual election of officers for 2017-2018. Terry Constello will discuss this.
So this is the time of the year where we have the annual election of officers pursuant to the bylaws, and in addition, we have to comply by filing an annual list of officers and directors to the Secretary of State. And for this year, this is a small change. I am recommending this following slate, and that be President Carolyn Goodman, Vice President Ted Olivas, Secretary Esther Ranke, and Treasurer would be Gary Ameling. The one name that you won't see here is we had previously had 2 vice presidents. The second vice president was Betsy Fretwell. And Betsy Fretwell is leaving the city of Las Vegas on July 6th. So in discussions with the officers here, and we thought that Ted Olivas will be serving the sole role of vice president. And if you have any questions of any of the officers, they're all here. Yeah.
May I have a motion, and we'll take a second just for Mr. Skoldoff. Is
I'll
there
make the motion.
Thank you, there's a motion by Member Arnold with a second.
Are we got to the backside too?
Well, this is just to show you, no.
Okay. Thank
We
you.
just,
Thank you, this is second by Member Skoldoff. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries, thank you very much. We'll move on to agenda item 9, because Esther said we would get out of here. We have a report by the Health and Commission and discussion for possible action regarding the fund categories for our bucket list for the Commission of the Las Vegas Centennial.
Thank you. Well, as you all know, we pretty much have determined what our bucket categories are, but we haven't decided exactly what to do.
They're not in here.
What we've discussed in those previous meetings, we had, and I didn't bring my notes with me, I left it at my office, but we had the things that were historic building preservation. We had events and educational opportunities, and then we had things like media and the like. So those were the 3 basic categories that I'm recalling right at this moment.
How about your committee? Do you recall more, committee?
Arts and media, that was the.
Arts and media.
Those 2 together, and education and then building.
So 4 buckets.
Yeah, those were the 3 buckets. We had put art and media together.
How about, I have events, education, arts, media, and building.
Events, education,
Oh, okay.
art and media, and then historic preservation. And I will look back at my notes and make sure that it's correct, but that's what we had from last month, for last meeting, and it's what I recall as my wonderful co-committee person here. Senator, do you remember anything else that we did?
I think you've got the exhaustive my mind.
Okay. Well, what we had talked about within our committees, in our committee discussion was after we divide these buckets up, that we were looking to be proactive with the type of funding that we would want to do, that we didn't want to just wait patiently and hope something fabulous walked in and we said, jobs. So to that end, we talked about learning from other experts who've done grant making before and have been strategic in giving away money. And so one of the people that I was able to reach out to and find was the fabulous Art Winkler. And Martha's kind enough to come today just to give us a brief overview of how you strategically decide what to do with money so that you actually have something to show for it.
Well, thank you. I'm Garth Winkler, longtime resident now of Las Vegas, 17 years running United Way. That was 12 years ago now. I teach at UNLV, I teach nonprofit management classes. These people should have seen the 990 before it was submitted, that's a requirement. Anyway, I did chat with Louise, and I knew the commission existed. I know some of the things that you've invested money in, and it's great stuff. But we're kind of got an opportunity here in Southern Nevada right now that I think this commission can be a huge part of. We have a new sense of community that's beginning to develop. And part of it's around
sports teams, and part of it's around the success of the Smith Center and other things that are happening in the community. And we have a resurgence of people moving here again. The community's starting to grow. When I was running United Way, we led the nation in growth and job growth. I think 13 out of 14 years was the period here that was going on. And in the year that UNLV won the national championship in 1990, United Way led the nation in the percentage of increase in giving in the community the same year. There's a sense of pride that in involvement that happens with that. And so I think we're at one of those moments here in the community, and the opportunity to be proactive and think about how do we go reach back and capture some of the spirit of the founders of our community of Las Vegas and what they had to face, the challenges, and their willingness to pull together as a community. And how do we take that message forward and engage all the people that are coming here today in doing that same type of thing. One little experience in trying to do this a number of years ago was totally underfunded, and I'm not asking for any money here at all. But Betsy Fretwell and I were in the St. Leadership Las Vegas class, and our class project was the My Hometown Bus, with the idea of going out to events and bringing the history and bringing people and trying to educate them on what does it mean to be a Southern Nevada, what does it mean to be a Las Vegas. And just a few simple messages that Las Vegas are people who vote, who know their neighbors, who care about one another, who are philanthropic or volunteer. We're below average in many of those categories. And I think linking the past from an active standpoint, your mission statement, celebrate the history of the people. And I know some of the projects we've done have zeroed in on that, but we're not giving it to the people necessarily. And so I would just be here to encourage that in your bucket list, that you take a proactive stance and look for, maybe even produce some sort of an RFP, a request for proposal, something that would reach out and engage people in the community as opposed to just reacting to what people are coming to you with.
Well, we thank you so much, and I can assure you, I'm sorry that David Riddleman, who's the head of our public information office, isn't here, but in his stead is Kevin Levis, who is running it. Because one of the biggest concerns, and certainly Member Coffin, Councilman, has talked from the beginning about marketing our license plate and marketing what this body does, what it's responsible for, which is exactly what you're suggesting.
Right, that will keep the license plates being renewed, and because you're gonna have more competition with that, if you want to keep that revenue flowing, I think you do have to engage that proactively.
So my husband would be thrilled to death. We want everybody to remember the mom. So, no, but it really is wonderful. So 1990 was the year that United Way in Las Vegas led the country as well?
Right.
So we have the opportunity, I think that segues into really what we're looking at with our mission statement and with the money that we have available, that if we can tap into that and use that beyond the mission, there's the separate vision, which is what drives the mission. It's the flame that really keeps you on fire within, continuing the mission. And I think if we look at wanting to, that's our vision of what we want to see, that we want to see a town, a community that's engaged, people who know their neighbors, people who do vote, people who pick up after themselves and volunteer and donate money.
Who care that their kids graduate from high school, who care about all the seniors that we have that are here.
There is a direct connection.
Did you, Mrs. Helton, again, Goodman, running these by, did you ask, Ms. Wickler, was there anything, one, that was missing from this? Two, would there be any, a number 4, beyond events and education, arts and media and buildings? Do you need a 4 that is possible others, or is that open a can of worms?
Well, actually, I think that what our grant process offers is for things not to necessarily have to hit that bucket. I mean, we are going to create 3 buckets, but it doesn't mean we can't consider something that doesn't really fit in. We can always look at anything. What we're doing with the buckets is to try to be proactive. That's where most of our grant requests
if in fact you are going there and say these following areas, but not restricted to.
No, that's not the recommendation. And there's one other thing before I ask you a question. And that is that what we would like to see is a pot of money that is prescribed. It doesn't have to be totally designated hardcore 100%, but if the subcommittees in charge of these buckets could be proactive within their own committee and look for something, as Garth is suggesting, that you want to have happen. We've been waiting for things to show up. You haven't said, you know what would be really cool, and I wish someone would bring to me is an idea, is a goal, is a project like this. I can give you one example.
RFP.
Exactly. And so if we in our buckets, on our bucket committees of 2 or 3 people, I think is what we've divided people up into, if we can consider what we would really like to see, and let's just give ourselves, because we need to tie into an amount of money, let's just give ourselves 100,000. It's not that we're tied specifically to that, but if we don't think at least that big, we might be missing a great idea, because that gives us some room to operate and to dream in, and then see what comes to us. For example, I would love, now that Boomtown exists, and it's so cool and fun, I would love to see how could we make that more alive, so that when you find it, it actually reaches out to you in more than just a passive setting that's really cool and has a lot of history that you can look at and see and touch. If you could have chautauquas of people who could just walk and pretend to be there. They are, that they lived there at that time and they're dressed in the period and they talk to you about it. It would make a much more enriching experience. For example, I mean, that's just one of the things that we could say, we'd really like to see this here. Let's do an RFP and see who would bring the best idea and how much it would cost us to do that. So that's just an example.
I thought one of the goals of this committee was just to create the buckets was actually come up with where our priorities are. Do we want to do a whole bunch of $5,000 to $10,000 grants, or do we want to do some significant things like the West Side School, or where we're really, this is something that really been valued. Did your committee discuss that at all?
We didn't really discuss that, although when you look at the by nature, if you're dealing with something that's going to be in the historic preservation, one of the things we did talk about was how, as a group, we really felt strongly that we didn't want to lose the Las Vegas High School. We had talked about even a project that we didn't want to lose the squares that used to be out there from class to class. I mean, that could be something. Obviously, you've got 2 different amounts of money. If you're needing to do a significant amount to save the high school, we have that money. By doing our buckets, it's not going to prohibit us from doing any of that, because those things are going to just be more expensive.
So on your report for your committee, you can accept your report as you stated it very loosely, or we can adopt the specifics of your report if you want, and if that would help us, then also including, your comments to it, that leaving it, again, not restricted to, but also working in line with RFPs and promoting areas that the commission feels would be valuable. So how would you like to see? Who's your
And
third
hopefully that
person?
would tie into the grant and the grant process that you all.
Senator is your third member. You've been noticing.
I'm fine. I'm contemplating the eternal verities of the committee right now, Your Honor.
That's true.
I'd really like to see, since we're meeting next month, I'd really like to have something specifically in hand to accept rather than a narrative that's in the minutes form. Rather, if there's something.
No problem.
Okay, will you bring that back to us then?
Absolutely.
But advance then would be the.
Yes, what you would be saying is you would obey accepting the report till when's our next meeting?
June 12th.
So.
I'd like to obey this,
No, I've got a ringer here. Would you please second this for Mr. Strodahl?
Second.
Thank
Whatever
you,
he-
just to make it really kosher here. Okay, is that all right with the committee? To bring it back
Absolutely right.
from the form?
Is the way that we verbally presented it, does this make sense? Does this feel like this is where we are wanting to go? Because,
Let me help out. If it helps. We got, when you're talking about categories and amounts, and Bob talked about fives, tens, we have to be prepared for the large, the million, second each electrical line. Because there are two targets out there, saving the Victory / Lincoln Hotel, very important. And if some money is allocated next week for the Hunter-Ridge Theater, it may come out of the sky that a plug figure is needed to purchase that or to do some portion of it. Who knows if that's even coming, but the point is, as long as we're flexible enough to know, because there is an appropriation bill in there on that item, so we'll know in 2 weeks. But I just say, as long as we're flexible to do anything, I don't care what kind of category.
Okay, there's a motion, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries, they'll come back with the firm, and thank you, Bart, very, very much.
Thank you very much.
But if I might suggest, not restricted to and including the more proactive, somehow you put that in what you're doing. Okay, thank you. So you'll bring something back firmly before the meeting so we can have it and everybody can. Thank you very much. Good report. All right, and now we're on to the next committee report by Jane Pike, Commissioner, and discussion for possible action on the grant application for the Commission for the Las Vegas.
Thank you, Jean Pike. Member Arnold is now passing out 2 different documents. One is the grant application.
Here, I didn't drink my water here. Would you give her?
I'm,
Can you give her mine?
trying to.
One's the general grant application and the other is bricks and mortar. And we're going to differentiate these by some means so that they're going to be easier in the future.
That's the operative word I love to hear.
Easier, yes. And they would have been colored today, but I did good just to get there. So I apologize for being late.
Why do we have two of these?
So one
sorry.
piece, yep. So if we look at the first one, which is the Las Vegas Centennial Commission grant application, if we take a look at that first, we will have this differentiated. Now knowing, after hearing member health report, we will be making some changes on this, but what we did since the last meeting and taking feedback is try to combine, look at the formatting of both of our grant applications, one for bricks and mortar, which is a bit different and has a different criteria, and then that for the general, and make sure that they were formatted similarly, and we took your suggestions for some of the criteria. So on the overall one on page 1, when you look at the bottom of the page, typical categories funded, we will be taking Ms. Helton's categories and trying to implement those into this as opposed to the museum, art exhibits, the oral, print, video history, education curriculum. So we will rework that and we would like to have
Don't
public.
lose any of it here.
No, that would not be our intent. We think that now after hearing these particular ones, that we can integrate those into one of those 4. And we would like to have a future conversation before we come back in June to ensure that we capture the essence of your committee's thoughts on those and therefore entering those. As you go through this, you'll see that there are still some items that we do want to change on page 4 of 10 when we talk about the visual arts funding.
A question, if I could,
Yes.
Member Pike, on, I think these are terrific suggestions, but an appeal process. I mean, I'm starting off requiring criteria right off the bat. If we granted you funds to go ahead and start within a 6-month award, an appeal process. You know, if we can get it going or something, if we can somewhere add in there.
Okay, perfect.
Boy,
We got that.
we need all
We
these
do-
hours?
What's that?
We met all these hours? This is a huge
Yeah,
amount of
with
work.
and they had about 100 different grants, at least 100. Yeah.
We do under the 3rd bullet point, Mayor, talk about under unforeseen extenuating circumstances, applicants may apply for an extension of time. They don't need either the 6-month startup requirement or 12-month completion. We left it a bit vague just because I'm sure we're going to encounter a number of different scenarios as people come forth with why it wasn't done?
And to be clear, the language is very rough.
Yes.
So it will still need some advice from our attorney. But it conveys, I think, what we're trying to achieve.
See, the flexibility is right there for you. Member Brian, yeah. Thank you, done that.
So again, I think what we tried to do was just go through, based on all the years of doing this stuff, try to cobble everything together that is just very condensed into one big application. And in my mind, I've got kind of a thought of how this is going to flow, the process itself, that is. So by the time it hits us, it's more similar to what you guys see on your board, on the actual council. It's got the recommendation from the committee. It's got some history, and it just distills everything down so we know exactly what we're looking at. If we check all the boxes of what's required.
More like a staff report.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, something very succinct that we can look at. And yet, all of that said, on page 10, we didn't add in some type of appraisal or evaluation when we were talking about paintings or other types of works of art. So just when you think you might have included everything, we recognize that we've got a note here now. We need to address that and see what is the best way and what conditions we would put on something like a painting. Do we do an appraisal? Do we establish a list of acceptable appraisers? Because that adds a whole other dimension in terms of who is going to be doing the appraisal and whose are we going to take. So we've got some work to do there, it appears. And then again, we looked at the grant application. We kept many of the elements in the original application that's currently being used. And then we went ahead and added some other parameters so that we would have a better synopsis of how the funds are really being used, what kind of organization is this, what are their key activities. And a budget worksheet, and some contact information. Now, one of the things that we talked about last meeting as it came up was the idea of whether someone was allowed to use a fiscal agent or a fiscal sponsor. And we had evidence of someone wishing to do that when they didn't have their own personal 501c3. And we never came to any conclusions. After doing a little bit more research on this, it appears that fiscal sponsorship provides a little bit more safeguards for this committee and also for the sponsor than does the agent. If you're just a fiscal agent, they are not required to look at how the money's being spent. They're typically just a pass-through. Whereas a fiscal sponsor, there's an actual agreement or MOU in place between the sponsor and the grantee, and then again between this commission and the grantee. I might suggest that we could look at that as a parameter if we think that there are going to be people that wouldn't have their own 501c3. It would certainly be cleaner just to say if you don't have a 501c3, if you don't meet the criteria of being a governmental agency or some of the other that we don't, but I think we're going to have situations that we may wish to designate funds and won't have that mechanism in place. I'm talking about a sponsor, not an agent. If we were going to go in one direction or another, and Ms. Ponticello may have, from an attorney standpoint, some thoughts on whether or not that would be prudent for this commission to go in that direction.
Terry Ponticello. We have had situations in the city of Las Vegas where grants are issued and we have problematic organizations that are they're not organized to the extent that they have a taxpayer ID or they have a 501c3. And really the one that we're more concerned about is having a taxpayer ID. And of course, in this organization, I think we've left it a little fluid depending on the circumstances, whether it be a nonprofit 501c3 versus a for-profit. But in the circumstances that we have had, organizations, neighborhood associations, we have used like United Way as a fiscal agent, not necessarily as a sponsor, and they have agreed to assist I don't know what other mechanisms of another organization that would be willing to be a fiscal agent or a sponsor. But if we did as either, I probably would recommend that we get their, they be added as a co-applicant, or they be as part of the application process that they sign, so that they also agree to comply with the rules and regulations that are issued by the commission.
I guess I'll
If I could, I'd like to just put in there also, it could be a church that as a 501c3 is behind the applicant that's coming to the commission for funding. And then did you put in here, liability exposure that church, for argument's sake, would be the body that has to ensure that applicant's processing or whatever it's doing.
And from my understanding, unless they're the sponsor, then they would not have that responsibility to ensure that they were following the guidelines of the grant. And in addition, the fact that it would be a church, they wouldn't be sharing that critical mission in terms of what we're granting the money for in most cases. A church generally isn't sharing the mission of advancing the historical or educational perspective of what the grant's for. So that's a fine line there between what a church would be doing.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking just to come up with an idea. People who have survived the Holocaust and live in Las Vegas, and it's historical, going back through the history of Las Vegas, and the sponsor is one of the temples, and then you have the body that's doing the research and the interviewing, who knows, does something, exposes themselves to one of the interviewees, and you've got a lawsuit, who's responsible?
I guess I'd like to offer up again to Terry, I think you can hear what we're trying to achieve. Is that something you can help us craft, where we maybe have a baseline of what we would agree to? In other words, you have to hit this baseline to come in with an application, whether it's a sponsor, and then along with that comes some sort of liability, agreement. I'm not quite sure how to word that, but I think we need to have some sort of requirement that they have some skin in the game, whether it's them themselves through a 501c3 or they have a sponsor that is acting in their steed there.
Understood. I could continue to work on the application and perhaps meet with you in your next meeting and, make some recommendations as to how to get the applicant ready to appear before the board, and make sure that by the time that applicant comes to the board that they've met all the requirements that you've set forth in your application process.
But could there be some onus on the sponsor, or whatever we're calling the higher body, that they in fact know that they, the church, whatever church I am, and he has come to me to go ahead and sponsor him under our 501c3, but I have to understand that I am backing his work from a liability standpoint. So they have to sign off something that statement's in there, that by taking Bob Coffin on it, I am guaranteeing that he will act and hire the right people and do all the right things.
Do we want that person after our presentation? I mean, if they're the ultimate,
Probably need to.
I think we still need to do some homework on this as to, because it really is going to depend on the applicant and how capable they are and how much they've met the criteria and how much they need to shore themselves up with a sponsor or a fiscal agent, and what arrangement the sponsor obviously would be willing to undertake. So.
question on page 3, still on for the record. This seems to address allowable cost, 8 salaries for the project manager only, unallowable cost, staff salary or other salaries or stipend. We've had several come before us with, we pay for the director, we pay for the camera person, we pay for this, we pay for that. Are we saying no, just the project person?
And make it very clear, this is a draft, so we're really gonna, when I think Jane, myself, and Hannah are ready to say, all right, we finally touch this as much as we can. We're gonna look to experts like yourself to weigh in with those type of comments.
This is great, this is really a solid piece.
Basically, that was taken from, Member Brown. It was taken from the material that we were currently using, and it's really just a spin-off from that. It wasn't changed that much.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, this all started based on what Esther.
What Esther was doing, yeah.
We just
was
added a
using.
few more words.
And Goodman here, I just think no matter what we do in any of the categories, there's always has to be wiggle room somewhere. We're never going to be able to dot every I. So at this point, so your next steps, one of your committees then going to go ahead and get with Terry and work out a little bit more of the details, and you're going to incorporate the two sheets that Esther, you're going to take a look at those.
Jane and I were just talking. I think what I'd like to propose is to maybe set up a call with particularly you or whoever from your board and talk about the buckets and how we integrate those, just to make sure that we're all in the same.
This is a working, group, not a committee.
Yes, these are not, they're not committees, they're,
Right, I forgot that, not a committee, board meeting.
since this is a work in progress, they're working groups, and they do report to the executive director, Esther Reinke, and she thereafter puts it on the agenda.
So I would like to entertain a motion to accept the report of this working group, who will now continue to work on the former working
I was
group.
gonna hold in the van
Yeah.
until we get the final report.
No, I want you to make a motion so I can ask
Yeah.
Mr. Senna for a second.
That's right.
No,
What was my
no,
motion?
I'm just doing it.
What you expect to say, Bob, I'm sure the mayor will.
That would be my motion.
Thank you very much.
And I would like to give vote a second.
Are we accepting the report?
That's what I have my standard second.
The new red
Emotions.
He will rest more easily knowing it is member.
Okay, all in favor, say
Aye.
aye. Fine, thank you comprehensively.
But I just think that
You may
there
stand.
is some value to a second to be serious for a moment. Because if the issue report has no support, you don't have to take a vote on it.
Well, we
Well,
have
how
a
many
first and a
times?
second, and it
Yeah, no.
failed anyway, so. it
No, but what I'm
doesn't
saying,
matter.
to advocate on behalf of the role of the second, if a proposition has no support, it dies. You don't even need to take a roll call. I'm just talking.
Oh, that is very true. You know, people
Second, then, you don't.
We can adopt that.
Yeah, you don't.
It's our own
Yeah,
working
it
group.
just seems to me that the.
We'll see, maybe nobody, so now you have a very big problem. You have to decide, will I be the rubber stamp? Okay, moving on to agenda item 11. We have a report by Member Stoddall and discussion for possible action regarding the use of funds for commission's outside marketing needs. And Mr. Stoddall, did you meet with Mr. Riggleman?
No.
Oh, that's fair. Get that on the record.
So, this was finished, quite frankly, this morning, and, I did not get a chance to, send this to David or his staff. But there are 10 points here, and basically what I'm suggesting is that the city of Las Vegas create a series of 6 public service announcements supporting the Las Vegas Centennial license plate. Each of the PSA announcements would feature an element of Las Vegas history, but that history the topic would focus on projects that were directly supported by the license plate fund. It would show things we've done. Such topics as the West Side School, but also things that would reflect our mission as we've adopted. I'm suggesting the PSAs would be broadcast over the next 6 months. They would not start airing until all of them were produced. And that's just the nature of the beast, that you can put one on, we got it on, and then things get delayed. Let's get the package done, and then we start airing it. I think we'll have more success in getting everything done. I suggest the PSAs will start airing on or before September the 1st of 2019. 16 or 17, but it's really
Yeah.
good. Uh,
17?
17.
He's an man of action, he's not waiting till 2 years.
Correct those put 17 on the reading.
I'm also suggesting that after the first 6 have been produced in our airing, additional historic topic could be dropped into the donut. Once we get that donut created, I think it's easier to put new historic elements in that would have to match.
Better than bucket.
Is that a technical?
Really?
Donuts, yeah.
Better than buckets. My point.
Okay, better than buckets?
Yeah, now move on, I'm sorry.
Wait a minute, do you know what a donut is besides the edible kind?
Gotta be an art, term of art, right? in
It's a
broadcast.
it's a TV term.
It's
where you-
also
It's a
a-
Medicare drug funding.
It it also is the thing you sit on after you have.
Yes, it is.
Term of art, term of art.
You're the logic of
Climate
this.
change? No. My father was.
There's a lot of
He was an OBGYN.
It could be, the topic.
Leave that out of here,
Well-
donuts.
Very well.
No, so is donut the appropriate word to use? It means something.
I think David would know
Yes.
what a
Okay.
television donut is.
Yes.
Well, maybe it needs to be pointed out as television donut.
Sorry I interrupted.
Yeah.
I think it's important that as part of a sequence and rotation plan be developed and not run all of them. Once they're all done, you start running, you run one for 6 or 8 weeks, the second one, and then by the 4th or 5th, you got a whole bunch of them running so they don't get you tired of watching, you've seen it so many times. Then I look for additional points there, the PSAs, KLVX, and I would suggest that all the scripts be radio, so you don't have to see them. You would also be able to work them on the radio, so you don't have to double up on the work here. Then the question is, does David have the team to do this internally, or can we give David some money where he could work with somebody, they could create some of these things? Or thirdly, does David want to come back and say, we need $35,000 or $50,000 to go out and get X public relations agency or advertising person to create this? So what I'm suggesting is this is really a draft. I'd like David to really read and maybe come back at the next meeting.
And maybe, if you could, through Ted, get it to David Riggleman to see what he thinks and maybe give, our member, so, with the corrected date,
Our comm team under David is also really good at social media. They're great, they're better than good. And they can create GIFs, they'll create all sorts of images and moving or still for social media, which then costs you nothing because once they're produced, we viralize them, we get them out there and repeat them and retweet and repost. And we get our mileage. But once the product is in the can, you can have a lot of fun with it for a lot of time. Any portion of the piece product, too.
Right, that's what I think. Rather than just throw it all out there, let's have a plan of how we get it out there, whether it's on Channel 2 or through social media.
Well, that would be associated. If you're doing it for broadcast, it's broadcast quality. But once you put it up on the net, it just goes.
Member L? This is Louise Helping for the record, and one of the things I just wanted to add was what we were going to make sure we thanked the people who bought the license plate, so that all the work that's happened has been possible for the people who bought the plates.
This is what they've done.
Yeah.
You did the website, you did this.
Yeah.
Excellent.
You're
To
right.
add that, you'll add that
Thank
to
you.
your report.
I'm not sure what we need to do.
We'll just accept your report thus far.
Mayor, that's a very good point that Sultan brings back in relation to thanking those who have purchased the Centennial plate.
Yeah.
But I do recall a conversation as to how in fact that could be done. Is that just through the PSA? Because I know that there's a conversation as far as trying to get addresses of those individuals who have actually purchased. I'm just bringing up past conversations, so I'm just trying to get caught up in relation to your thought process as to how to do that. Would that just be a fan through messaging, social media, television, as far as thanking all of those who actually have.
The people who bought them know who they are, because they're traveling around with them on their car. And it's, to me, if you had someone talk about how great these people are who bought these places because they've made all this happen, as you're just driving, you're going, yeah, that's me, they're talking about me, so and it makes you feel good. And they should, we want them to feel good, because they should be proud.
And
Exactly.
it piques other interest too.
CIC and media board running across City Hall, thanking all the names of all the people who bought the license.
The other element that's included in the communication committee meeting was awareness of this committee, what it does, and of the members. Potentially, you could have the members doing, if it's 10 or 15 or 20 seconds, they could be the person on the PSA. I didn't put that in there. I'm not sure we want to get into that. Yeah, that's what I think. So let's just focus on the success of the project.
Okay, so how about a motion, you can't move around. How about a motion to,
So moved.
okay, there's a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Wait,
Okay.
Okay, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
And anybody-
Do you have a question?
And so, Mr. Olivas, you will add that one caveat that, Ms. Helms brought up about the thanking.
Mayor?
Absolutely.
And Esther Ranke, just really quick as a follow-up, because I have talked to David about this. And remember, we also have city billboards. We've got parkees, 6 of them that don't cost the city anything. We just have to come up with the graphic. So we will use our city parkees, and they're 50 seconds. They go into a rotation that can run thank you messages. Here's how you purchase Centennial license plate. This is what the license plate looks like. This is what we've done. So we've got that in our inventory that won't cost anything. He will come back June 12th with the plan on, because we were still kind of waiting for the funding categories and that, so that we can do an outreach and say, if you know this project, this is where you find Centennial funds. And they will also be prepared to do a ton of social media on license plates. So they were just waiting for us to get through this meeting, but he is prepared to come June 12th to make a presentation on everything that we've talked about without using a lot of funds. If we do need some funding to do some of this marketing, we can take it out of our administrative line cost. We've got money in that, but we should be fine with using communications in there.
One thing we're not there is we want to have signs at the neon, at the Bomb Museum, at these major projects that say this was funded by the license plate money, and please renew our some sort of marketing thing. And then secondly, whether or not, I think we've got it in one of our rules or
That's in
guidelines,
James' document.
that if we give somebody a grant and there's a published material, they have to identify that the funding came from us, whether or not we could change that, say the funding came from us, and here's how you can get your license plate. We want to add that to the little requirement that they.
Are we not allowed to
Well,
advertise
that's
that, the sale of the plate at DMV?
No.
Or in the online?
No, because they can't allow that with every group. So they said that we could, they won't give us a mailing list or.
I mean, the Raiders and the.
There was about 30 or 40 plates being sold.
Yeah,
They don't generate money to fund something, do they?
They're all worthy in their mind, they're just
Yeah.
equally worthy.
Esther, there's some limitation that DMV puts on us?
No, the limitation is they won't allow us to go after people that they're like a mailing list or put stuff in their mailing just to promote the Centennial license plate. They won't allow us to do that. They're fine with us doing whatever kind of marketing or advertising we want. They just won't allow us to do anything physical in their DMV offices. They love the idea that we're going to promote the plates.
Can we do it through our sewer bills? Can Can we find out? Everybody has a sewer bill. Can we put in a little something?
Yes.
You get $1 off your sewer bill if you buy a plate. No. But I mean, can we what a perfect idea, insert in the sewer bill a little picture of the Centennial plate and what it does?
Or
Okay.
list,
Yeah.
or
Look into
back to
it.
Bob's point, Mrs. Soto's point, list, due to your purchase of the Centennial plate, these are the projects that your plate has funded. You know, throughout the
But
city.
anyway, through the sewer, the city sewer bill, we pay for it. Can you find out if we can do that?
We will look
Please?
into it.
Thank you. Okay.
I think, yeah.
Okay, so now we have control of it. All right, Esther, is that your report? Or you're
No.
number 12?
We were on,
We voted and we passed.
okay.
We accepted the report. It's gonna go to, through.
All right, I
Mr.
kinda
Rivas,
jumped
Mr.
in.
Rickles.
Don't report.
Okay, my report is less than 30 seconds. One of our fabulous grants that we awarded was the American Experience, or African Americans, the Las Vegas Experience, PBS. I think I sent one to you. If anybody has one, or would like one of these videos, I have 9 of them. We don't have enough for everybody, but
Yeah, I don't
if
have
you would like one, and then they gave us a nice letter, thank you letter, saying where it was spent. And then if we need more, I'll give these to Marcus, I'll pick one up. If we need more, let me know, and I can,
And they've really been
Get
good
some more.
about featuring us too, yeah.
Mayor Goodman, could you, for the record, so that it's in the minutes, actually read verbatim item number 12?
I'd be happy to. Esther, are you ready?
oh, yes, sorry.
Agenda item 12, we have a report by Esther Reineke, Executive Director, regarding completed and current projects and announcements relative to the Commission for the Las Vegas Centennial.
Thank you, Mayor.
And could I back up and ask maybe a picture of that license plate when you speak to Jorge or David Bowers or the city clerk about sending it out? This is what it looks like. This is what you're buying, get on board, we fund all this stuff.
We will recess.
Thank you. Okay,
She will.
agenda item 13, discussion regarding topics for future agenda items by the commission. Comments made during this portion of the agenda by individual members shall refer solely to proposals for future items, and any discussion should be limited to whether or not such proposed items are within the purview of the commission and/or whether such proposed items should be placed on future agenda. No discussion regarding the substance of any such proposed topic shall occur and no action shall be taken. Does anybody want to discuss anything with those limitations? Obviously not. We'll move on to number 14. I think this might be like second public comment. Citizen participation. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to members within the jurisdiction of the commission for the Las Vegas Centennial. No subject may be acted upon by the commission for the Las Vegas Centennial unless a subject is on the agenda scheduled for action. The wish to be heard will be remained for the record. The matter of discussion on any single subject as well as amount of time any single speakers allowed may be limited. Seeing and hearing no one, we will then move on to agenda item 15. Thank you very much. Look at that. That's
I
really
know.
nice. Well done.